Hi, this is James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting June the 19th, 2017. This week, I'm back in the Lenormand saddle, so I'm going to be working with La Faneuse Lilac Dondoff this week, which is now becoming my favorite go-to working Lenormand deck. So I will leave information about the deck in the description box below so you can learn more about it and decide if you'd like to add it to your own personal collection. So I'm taking the deck up and I'm going to shuffle the cards, and as I do for each of these weekly general readings, I'm setting the intention by asking the basic question, what do we need to know for the week ahead? So I'm feeling that's good. I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards. And fan them out. And when I work with Lenormand in these videos, I do a line of 5, so I'm going to be picking 5 cards from the fan that are getting my attention. And now that I have the 5 cards picked out, I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up and put it aside. When I work with a line of 5, I always start with the middle card. For me, the middle card represents the central issue for the week, possibly, or what we're being asked to focus on for the week. So taking a look at the card, we have the mice card. So mice for me is a card that can represent stress, worry, and anxiety. So this card could be saying too, like, we're just looking at what are our stressors this week. What is it that's bothering us? What is it that's annoying us? I tend to look at this as like being pestered, being annoyed, being around a nuisance of some kind. So it could be like, how are we going to react and respond differently to those stressors this week? Now, the other thing about mice for me is that mice can represent loss. So this week we could be taking a look at the things that we perceive as loss. And this card in particular talks about loss that is a gradual kind of situation. This card can represent gradual decline, a gradual erosion, something that's being lessened or diminished. You know, and our reaction could be is that we're allowing things to eat away at us or gnaw at us, because I tend to look at that with mice. This card can mean things that are eating away at us or gnawing at us. So now that is what mice means to me, but we will know more about what this specifically is talking about when we take a look at the surrounding cards, because if you work with Lenormand, you know that Lenormand is best read in combinations. So now taking a look at the entire line, we have as the first card, we have ship. Second card, we have ring. Next to that, we have snake. And rounding out the line, we have scythe. Okay. So what I do is I look at the cards that are immediately flanking the central card. So the card on the left is ring. So ring for me is a card that can represent commitments and agreements. So it could be there may be a lot of stress and worry and anxiety if we go with the center card, you know, as the focus around existing commitments or maybe even recurring commitments, because due to the symbolic circular nature of ring, for me that can represent something that's recurring. So, but there may be a lot of stress or worry or anxiety around commitments, engagements. There may be some worry or stress involving a contract. You know, ring is a card of contracts or agreements. So that could be, you know, something written, that could be something verbal. You know, going with ring, ring represents promises, it represents pledges. So it could be some stress and worry around those kinds of things. It could also be maybe if someone wants to take a relationship, because ring can represent a an engagement. With that, it could mean a serious commitment. You know, maybe somebody is stressed and worried about that. You know, could be too, like maybe if we go with the idea that mice is about loss, you know, loss over time, then this card could represent maybe a gradual decline around a relationship, you know, and there's stress and worry about that. So I'm seeing that with ring. So again, it's about like maybe there's going to be some stress and worry. I'm going to keep it more general. Maybe some stress and worry around a pre-existing, because ring comes first in the line. So for me, that could be like a prior or an existing commitment or engagement. And there may be, as a result of that, there may be some stress and worry. It could also be too going with the idea of something recurring. So there could be a cycle or a pattern, something that keeps happening again and again, recurring, that is producing, because mice comes after ring, so ring is first, then this is the end result, or what comes next. Then there may be, as a result of this recurring cyclical kind of thing, or this pattern, then there's a lot of stress and worry as a result of that. It's like the ring is the cause, and then the mice is the effect, right? So on the other side, this would make sense about the commitment and the worry and the stress with that. Snake. Snake for me, my first go-to meaning with snake is always complication. So it could be saying if we pair ring and snake, we have a complicated relationship, or a complicated commitment, or a complicated engagement. Something that was, you know, could have maybe started out very simple and very easy, has now become very complex with snake, right? It could also be too, if we go with the idea here that ring is about a pre-existing relationship, a serious commitment, snake on the other side is that there may be a lot of worry or stress around the other woman. This card here has the inset of Queen of Clubs. That could represent the other woman, so there could be another person involved. If it's not a woman in particular, it could be a person who is perceived as a rival, right? So there could be stress and worry around another person who has kind of maybe insinuated themselves, entangled themselves into a relationship, and having to worry about that, you know, kind of energy. But I'm seeing that. Now the other thing with snake could represent, you know, if we go with the idea of an agreement, you know, I said about contracts, agreements, promises being made, then there may be stress and worry about a person who is not being honest, because the snake card can represent deceit. So it could be like a person who says one thing, but their actions say something else. You know, like this, I'm seeing this card as a person who maybe, you know, habitually, if we go with the idea that ring can represent something recurring, you know, who is continually not keeping his or her word, right? And then you get to a point like every time that happens, it puts you in a state of being stressed or worried when the person lacks follow through, right? And so it could be maybe too, it's like sometimes the snake card for me is about the consequences of something. So maybe what could happen is like you have stress and worry because you have to face the consequences of maybe a third party not keeping his or her word in a commitment. And this may not be the first time that he or she has done that, right? So I'm seeing that as possibilities with snake. Now, if we move to the far left of the line, we have ship. So ship is a card that can represent, for me, it can represent progression, advancement, moving forward, right? Because ship is about travel. So now it could be, if we go with the very literal aspect of ship and ring, it could be a travel commitment. It's something that is a recurring type thing. Again, going with this idea of ring being about something that happens in cycles, or something that is cyclical, something that's recurring. So it could be, you know, a recurring travel arrangement. You know, there could be that. And then there's some stress and worry about that. Could also be too with ship. Ship can also represent long distance travel. It could represent something happening abroad. So there's a foreign aspect to this card. So it could be saying too, like maybe there is stress and worry around something taking place in another part of the world. This could be like something international. And so it's something that's recurring, or it could be maybe even some sort of commitment or agreement with someone in another part of the world. You know, there's an international agreement or an international kind of contract or, you know, promise or pledge, and now it's to the point where there's some worry about that, especially if ship is about moving forward on it. I'm looking at direction and the ship is now moving towards ring, so it could be some sort of progression, advancement, moving forward on a commitment. And maybe there's some sort of questions about the commitment. Now, if we go with snake, it's saying it's now hit a rough patch. Maybe there's some sort of complexity, or it's become very complicated, and focusing on the stress or the worry, or if the commitment's going to be lessened or diminished in some capacity. So I'm seeing all of those. The other thing with ship can represent some form of commerce. So it could be a commercial venture, you know, that kind of thing. I'm looking at the literal image and the idea that the ship travels over water. So this could be about a journey through life, or a spiritual journey, you know, that kind of thing. And having to navigate those either spiritual waters or emotional waters, right? And if it's about an actual commitment or agreement or a contract between international parties, it could be like having to navigate that, especially if there is some sort of complication, especially if it appears that someone is not keeping his or her word. Or there could be some sort of scandal. I just saw this with snake. So snake for me can represent scandal. And I don't mean a TV show, even though that's one of my favorite TV shows. I don't mean a TV show scandal. I mean, there may be some scandal that, you know, is creating some sort of stress and worry or anxiety because of the entanglements it has created. You know, it could be the scandal has come as a result of the consequences of someone's actions regarding a commitment. You know, and so now it's like whatever this is, it's like the snake card is quite clear. It's like there's going to be some sort of consequence for that. There's some sort of consequence for being the third party in a situation where there's only supposed to be two people in it. There's a consequence for that. There's a consequence for not keeping one's word when it comes to an agreement. You know, so this card, really for me, it's about like there is going to be some sort of consequence as a result of a complication that arises in a pre-existing situation, like an agreement of some kind. That's the way it's coming to me. But the focus is going to be on what's going to be the loss, because there may be some sort of loss as a result of that. You know, with mice being in the middle, there may be some sort of loss, something that was kind of set. If we go with the idea like the setting in a ring, because they're showing me that, if something was set, now something has happened, and now we're not sure where things stand, right? So there's that. And I will say this, the final card doesn't really help much because snake is a challenging card, mice as the focus is definitely a challenging card, but we have the scythe as the end card, and this is also a challenging card, right? So as a result of the consequence, one of the consequences could be, scythe would be, there's a break, right? For me, this card represents a break. It represents a disconnection. It represents something being severed. It can represent an actual split, something being divided, something being split. So there's that kind of energy. So what started out maybe very promising, going with the ring being about promises, they're saying what started out very promising, as time goes on, is going to become very, very challenging. We're going to have issues about some sort of loss. They're going to have issues about stress and worry. There's going to be maybe a third party, an idea about somebody not keeping his or her word, some sort of entanglement. It's going to produce a consequence as a result, and the consequence could be there's going to be some sort of break. There's going to be some sort of separation. There's going to be some sort of split. Scythe is also a card, when it comes up, it could be saying to, like, that may happen suddenly, that may happen unexpectedly. There may be swift, immediate action. I tend to look at that with Scythe. So, summing up, I'm looking at the cards. Ship represents something that may be a commercial venture or something where we are exploring something or wanting to move something forward in terms of progression, advancement. It could be a commercial venture again, and may have something to do with something foreign, something international. Ring is all about a commitment. It could be a recurring commitment, an ongoing commitment, and so there's an agreement, a contract, a promise, something of that nature. And then we hit the rough patch. Then we get to mice. And so if something happens where it produces some worry, some stress, a sense of loss, some sort of gradual decline with this commitment or agreement, and then it's quite clear with snake. Snake could be the reason for the worry and the stress is as a result of a third party stepping in, or a third party complicating things, or an entanglement of some kind, and we can't see our way out because the snake card represents twists and turns. It could be something that produces a sense of scandal or scandalous, with the Queen of Clubs being a face card on it. It could be involving a woman, there's kind of thing. But I'm seeing like it could be a third party being entangled, some sort of scandal, could be some sort of lie, that kind of thing. Somebody not keeping his or her word, breaking a promise, going with that kind of thing. So I'm seeing that. But whatever it is, it could potentially create a complicated entanglement or some type of scandal, right? And then going further with Scythe, Scythe represents the consequence could be there's going to be a break, there's going to be a split, there's going to be something being severed, there's going to be some sort of disconnection, right? And it could happen sooner rather than later. I tend to look at this card as, something that happens swiftly, something that happens quickly, something that happens unexpectedly. So, not the most glowing of readings, not the most positive, but I'm going to end it on that note. So, this is how I'm going to end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close, I want to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week, as much as can be expected with these cards, right? And until we get together again, take care. At least try to. The best you can. Bye.